who we know about,
I'd love to
not
talk
the other
about the
people that have
border.
got.
I'd love to
No,
talk
but you
about-
don't talk about that. You're talking about women's autonomy. And by the way, I'm a woman. You're not. Focus on the other things as well as that, because there's so many more important things, and you know it. But because you guys are stressed out about how this campaign is going, you're focusing on that one issue: abortion, abortion, abortion. How about protecting our borders so those young girls don't have to make that kind of a choice if something bad happens when a criminal comes across the pond and hurts them or rapes them? Focus on that.
What's up, everyone? In this intense face-off, Sage Steele fires back at Brian Tyler Cohen's talking points on abortion and women's rights. Right out the gate, Steele exposes Cohen's lack of depth on topics like border security and crime and the economy. She accuses Cohen and his allies of obsessing over one issue, abortion, while neglecting other pressing concerns, calling them out for abortion, abortion, abortion. Let's get into it and check it out.
Let me just ask you, Brian, if the Democrats are the party of fairness and equality for women and are the standard bearers and flag wavers of women's rights, why is it that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris continue to support trans athletes competing in women's sport, which everybody knows is a grotesque attack on women's rights to fairness and equality? I'm bemused.
Piers, again, the same concept applies. The number of people that are A, worried about that in this election, and B, that actually impacts. Again, if you are worried about trans athletes, how are you not talking about the issue of women's bodily autonomy, of their reproductive freedom, of Republicans' threats to block women from traveling between states in this country? I mean, you try to have it both ways, where you pretend that the trans issue is something that upsets you to the ends of the earth, and yet
it does.
That impacts Piers, how many people does that impact in this
country? Let me
how
ask you a question.
Actually something.
I love the way that Democrats like to pretend nobody cares, one, when they do, and secondly, it has no real impact on women's sport. The United Nations last week, the United Nations last week came out with a report that said that around the world, 900 medals had been deprived from going to biological women because they had gone to trans athletes in women's sport. 900. That is not a small thing. That is an erosion of women's rights around the world, and it's being promoted in the United States by Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. So
this is where the hypocrisy gets exposed. For all their claims about standing up for women, Biden and Harris are backing policies that actually strip women of their rights. When they position themselves as pro-women, it's nothing about a talking point. They're leaving real women, especially young athletes, at a disadvantage, sacrificing their opportunities on the altar of political correctness. Steele is calling it like it is. Supporting women's rights selectively isn't supporting them at all.
When they position themselves as we are for women's rights, I say, as we would say in Britain, to a point, Lord Copper, because you're not when it comes to women's rights in sport. And there is an absolute conflict there. Let me bring in Sage here. I mean, Sage, this is where I think there's a real contradiction. How can you be for women's rights on abortion, but not in sport, for example?
It's completely hypocritical, just like what happened with the vaccine and that forced mandate, which I had to do to keep my job as well at Disney. So my body, my choice when it's convenient for you. And again, #science, right? There has never been an issue that is this black and white. Brian, we can go back and forth and debate on the vaccine and the efficacy of it and all the, did it help, did it not, how many, there has never, ever, in the history of this universe, been an issue between men and women, and all of a sudden, well, I don't know, XX, XY, and it's okay if he has this and that. Stop it. And at the end of the day, it's actually much more. It's almost 1,100 now, Piers, and this is just from a couple of days ago, trophies that have been taken away from women or girls. But that doesn't count on the lower levels where there are no trophies given out per se. We're talking about Olympic boxing and stuff like that. But when you look at, junior high school track scholarships, you got to finish in the top 3 to go ahead to state. But now you're 4th because I live in the state of Connecticut, where one of the major lawsuits first came from 5 or 6 years ago. Actually, a young woman I live next door to. This is happening everywhere, but you don't want to talk about it because you know deep down, you're not going to admit it, but deep down you know that it's wrong. And I also think it's interesting that you go with this low-hanging fruit and all those talking points of the childless women from 4+ years ago, completely out of context. At the end of the day, stick with the facts. By the way, I'm not offended by that Julia Roberts stupid commercial. Like I think it's so lame, and it is very condescending. Like I'm afraid to tell my husband, my boyfriend, my partner, whatever it is, who I'm going to vote for, and just be quiet about it. Like, stop it. And most importantly,
do you think that
that is the only issue? Why is that the only issue that you guys are focusing on? Abortion, women's rights. Have things changed? Yes, but there are plenty of states that have zero restrictions where you can do it up to the moment the baby's born, and I guess you're okay with that.
The actual reality on the ground?
Well, maybe because of the fact that women's bodily autonomy is not being stripped away. It has never been part of the Constitution. It never has been.
There isn't an abortion desert. There isn't an abortion desert in the South. There isn't
there
abortion
are more
bans in the South.
restrictions.
Women are able to go get abortions in the
yes,
South.
but it also, there are more. You asked me a question to let me answer. There are definitely more restrictions depending on where you live. There are also many states where there are fewer restrictions, #none, where you can do it up to the moment a baby is born, and even in some cases we have seen after. So let's not act like it's only one way. There are less restrictions in some states, 10, 11, and then there's many others where there are so many more. This has been through the years. This is before Dobbs, by the way. There's so many things. But tell me why this is your only issue. Tell me why this is your only issue, Brian. Why is this your main focus? How about
Steele challenges Cohen's one-track agenda, focusing solely on abortion is a distraction from issues Americans are really grappling with. It's about keeping people emotionally hooked while real issues go ignored. Steele cuts through the noise, exposing this fixation on abortion as a strategy to manipulate and not to empower.
the border? How about the economy? How about endless wars across the pond? Like, that's the stuff that by the way, black voters, Hispanic voters, everyone's talking about is the economy. This is the one thing, because that's the only thing that you think you can, quote unquote, win when this country is falling apart and people don't feel safe.
Which cases have we seen abortions happen after the baby's born? Because you just said that, so I'm curious where that's happened.
It happened for sure in Colorado. I believe it also happened in Minnesota. I'll be glad, and you know what? I'm sure peers can connect us.
I mean, educate me.
Excuse me. I'm sure peers can connect us. I'm sure peers can. There were babies left
so you have no
on
proof.
the table.
You're just saying
birth.
You're sure it's happening in Colorado. Give us the proof. There are a lot of viewers. We'd love to know where babies are being executed after they're born. We would love to know where babies are being executed after they're born in Colorado. Let us all know.
I just told you, and I don't know how you define executed, but left to die. That has absolutely happened before, and it is something I talked about with RFK Jr. on my podcast several months ago when it was late-term abortion and all that whole debate. Again, I'm sure peers can connect us. I'll gladly go back and forth with you because I respect the hell out of you. At the end of the day, my question for you is, isn't there more? How about the topics that I listed that you completely ignore in the border and 10.4 million minimum people coming over the border? That's who we know about.
I'd love to
not
talk
the other
about
people
the
that have
border.
got.
I'd love to
no,
talk
but you
about
don't talk about.
Steele is hitting Cohen right where it hurts, avoiding real issues that affect daily lives. Instead of having an honest conversation about politics impacting everyone, Cohen's focus is narrow and politically motivated. Classic deflection from what the average American cares about: border security, safety, and economic stability. Steele is making it clear it's not about women's rights, it's about power and narrative control.
About that. You're talking about women's autonomy, and by the way, I'm a woman. You're not. Focus on the other things as well as that, because there's so many more important things, and you know it. But because you guys are stressed out about how this campaign is going, you're focusing on that one issue: abortion, abortion, abortion. How about protecting our borders so those young girls don't have to make that kind of a choice if something bad happens when a criminal comes across the pond and hurts them or rapes them? Focus on that.
Because I believe that people should be able to exercise rights over their own bodies. I mean, prior to black people having the right to vote, they weren't allowed to. I would be worked up if that was rolled back too. Prior to women having the right to vote, they weren't allowed to. I would be worked up over having that too. Prior to black people having freedom, they didn't. I would be worked up if that was rolled back as well. We deserve rights, we deserve progress, and the notion that we should just take it lying down when those rights are rolled back defies reality.
All right,
I don't think that most sane people are thinking that way, honestly. I do believe that this will always be an issue no matter what to the end of time, because there's morals involved. But again, my body, my choice when it's convenient, and I respect everybody's opinions on it. I do. I have great discussions with my female friends and men. No, excuse me. Let me clarify because
you
obviously
know that there are states in this country. There are states in this country where women can get raped.
Brian,
there are states in this country where women can get raped, and yet it's inconvenient for them to try to exercise their bodily autonomy with an abortion.
I said this before, and obviously you took it the way you wanted to take it. When it's convenient, meaning science, following my body, my choice. So for this, but not for COVID, right? That was my point. So don't act like convenience with rape. Don't bring that in. It was when it's
Sage,
bodily autonomy,
this.
only when it's convenient.
I'd love to hear your guys' opinion down in the comments below about all the points that were made within today's video. If you agree or disagree, please be sure to give us a like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel, and we'll see you guys in the next one.